Awesome.
Let's jump right in, man. And I appreciate your time today. So I listened to Straight Outta the Country all the way through the other day, and I actually listened to it 3 times because I did one where I put it on and then I went and did some other stuff, kind of how I would normally listen to music, right? And then I did another one where I listened to it just listening to the lyrics and everything. And the album blows me away. It's unbelievable, man. It really, really is good. There's one song, and you might even know which one I'm gonna pick because I have three kids, 2 sons and a daughter. And there's a song called More Than Me. I want to play a clip real quick.
I know the world's gonna think the world of you, but I swear on the stars above you, no one's gonna love you more than me.
Dude, I got goosebumps now listening. That's like probably the 5th time that I've listened to that song. Unbelievable tune. Walk me through this one and what it means to you.
Well, first of all, man, I really appreciate the kind words. We're proud of it and excited for folks to be able to hear it and get new music out there for people. But as for More Than Me, it actually just kind of came from a conversation that I had with my oldest daughter, who's now 11. And this was maybe a couple of years ago. And she came home and was telling me about her little friend having boyfriend troubles or something like that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we're 9. We're not dealing with this right now. It's going to be a lot of years, down the road. I hope you find somebody that loves you a lot and you're happy and all that, but that's going to be a long ways from now. But I said, I promise you, they better love you a whole bunch, whoever you wind up with. But I promise you, no matter what, no matter how much they do, they ain't ever going to love you more than I do. And that just kind of prompted the idea. And my co-writers on the song are all parents like you and I. And I just love how simple the song is. Sometimes we overthink it as songwriters and try to overcomplicate things. And it's actually a lot more difficult to write really simplistic style songs like this. So it's really difficult not to get in your own way, if you will.
Well, so you mentioned that the song, you had that conversation with her years ago, and then I was reading up on the album and I found that basically this album is a continuation of Late Nights and Long Necks. And so, which is another phenomenal album of yours.
Thank you.
Before we jump into this one, I got to know, have you been writing new stuff during this whole pandemic? You haven't been touring and all of that. So I imagine a creative person like you is just writing away, right?
Yeah, you would think so, but I've kind of been just the opposite. So I'll address the first part of the question. I feel like Straight Outta the Country is an extension of the Late Nights album. And when we went and wrote for the previous album, the Late Nights and Long Necks album, man, we wrote and or found I don't know, probably 35 40 songs that we really, really liked. And we knew that we were going to put them all out, but we just didn't know how we were going to do that. And so we already have another album ready to go also. And there's songs on it that I love and can't wait for people to hear. So, we didn't put our favorite 10 on Late Nights and Long Necks and then our next favorite on this one. It's just kind of like putting a puzzle together, whatever pieces kind of fit and the timing of everything. And so we'll have another album. And even this one ain't even out and I'm talking about the next one after it, but it's a typical artist for you. But point being, we've had a lot of music ready to go. It's just, these days in music, and then when you throw on top of it what we've all had to navigate the last year or more now, trying to be strategic and efficient about putting albums out or songs out or whatever. It's kind of always a fluid situation, a work in progress. But to the latter part of the question, you would think that I'd be in here woodshedding, writing every day. And I've written a little bit, but I really haven't written that much. And I don't know if it's attributed to the fact that I just haven't really felt creative because of all the stress of what we've been dealing with, or I've written over Zoom a couple of times. And I mean, I'm appreciative that we have the opportunity and the technology to do that, but it's a whole different ball game than being able to be in a room with some folks and I don't know, read the wrong room, I guess, if you will. So I haven't been writing much, but I've got a ton of music ready to go. I wrote a lot before this all, so I guess that's a good thing.
I gotta kind of stick on that whole pandemic and lockdown thing for a second because you know, I've known you for a while and I've watched a lot of your interviews, and you've said time and time again that you and your wife, since the very beginning, you guys have kind of been on this thing where you go 4 weeks without seeing each other because you're touring or whatever the case is, and she's been at home, and then you're forced to be home. Was she ready to kick you out after like month one, or how has that been for you guys?
I don't know if it took a month. Yeah, it's you know, it's funny because everybody like back home and stuff, they're like, man, I bet you're loving all this time off, and I bet your wife is loving having you home. And certainly we've you know had opportunities and with our kids that we wouldn't have had otherwise, and we appreciate those and have tried to make the most of those. But at the same time, you know, our normal life rhythm has just been completely turned upside down.
Yeah.
And you know, normal life rhythm to most people is what we've been doing for the past year, and vice versa. So people are, you know, it's hard for people to understand that, you know, kids are so routines are so important to kids, as
Yep.
you know.
Yep.
And our routine has just been so off, and it's all been off for us. So redefining roles at home and those kinds of things were, it was probably a very difficult first couple of months, and then we kind of figured it out. But you know, I'd have my wife going, don't do this again. You can do that, but you can't do it on Tuesday, or you can't, you know what, it was all those types of conversations. I'm like, okay, whatever. She goes, and I know you're trying to help, but don't do that. You're just messing her up or him up, or
Yep.
you know, whatever. So you know, it was a work in progress there for a while, but we've made the most of it, and I think we're getting close to seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. And for the first time in over a year, it's not a train. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Absolutely. You know what, though? I think the positive thing is that because we've all been through some form of that, right? I think we've all grown a little bit. At least I know I have. So I learned some certain things that I didn't before because I was going. And so I think it's made me a better person in that respect. I want to go back to the album Straight Outta The Country because it really is a country album. And it's one of the things that I've loved about you. You've sort of pushed the envelope on the sound a few times, but really have stayed true mostly to Justin Moore and to that country sound. And I think nowadays, and correct me if you disagree, country, that kind of 90s country sound is coming back with people like yourself, John Party, Luke Combs, who are making it popular again. Is that something you're excited about? Because I know from a business standpoint, you do kind of have to follow the trends a little bit, but now it's kind of going your way. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would. Yeah. And certainly I'm excited about it. You know, when it got, I guess, toward the middle of my career to this point, you know, 6 7 years ago or whatever, when it I don't know, I guess it got a little more pop leaning, or there were a couple of different subgenres, if you will, of country. And I'm going, oh gosh, how am I going to stay on the radio? And it's really not a knock against that style of stuff or any of the artists that did it. I'm just thinking to myself, like you said, from a business perspective, what the hell am I going to do here? But you know, I think we bent just enough, but never broke, if you will. And I think we've made really good song choices throughout that period of time. And we just kind of hung on to the rope, if you will. And here we are 13, 14 years later or whatever, which is crazy. But yeah, man, I'm really excited. You know, I just as a fan of country music, I'm excited. I just when and everybody's different, but when I turn on the radio, that's what I want to hear because that's what I grew up on. And you know, that's not a knock against the other stuff. It's just personally, I'm a fan of that. So to see that it's becoming popular and I guess more popular right now, I should say, is super exciting, man. You know, we're going out. We were speaking of 90s country, we were when all this hit us, we were on tour or had him on tour with us. Tracy Lawrence, who's a huge influence of mine and one of the biggest in the 90s, and a guy who I have just a ton of respect for and I'm such a fan of. And matter of fact, we're playing a few shows this weekend, makeup dates from all that, which will be the first time since March of last year. So I'm looking forward to catching up with him. Yeah. So
he was on your podcast. I want to touch on the podcast for a little bit. And I know we're running a little late here, but the Justin Moore podcast, which is actually now turned into a vlog as well. You've had Tracy Lawrence, Brantley Gilbert, Diamond Dallas Page, and all these other people on there. For you, who has been the coolest guest, or I guess the coolest moment on the other side of things, where you are the host of the thing?
Man, most of the folks we've had on a few people that I didn't know personally beforehand or weren't friends with, or at least friendly with. But for the most part we have, but not because we were just talking about him. Tracy, I thought was great. I thought he was really, really, really good. And I am certainly not a professional broadcaster or not a pro from, the side of the mic that you typically sit on. I'm better at this end. But we just try to have a conversation. I do prep, but I don't try to bang people with question after question. I just kind of let the conversation flow, or at least that's my goal, and just kind of build up questions as we're having conversations. And I thought Tracy was great. He was really open about some, past tours he did with George Jones. He had a couple of cool stories, and he opened up about him getting mugged and shot in Nashville right when his career was kind of taking off, which I had forgotten about. But and then Diamond Dallas Page is a good buddy of mine, kind of on the other end of the spectrum, which one of the most random friendships I've ever made, but a great one. He's awesome and energetic and uplifting. I tell you what, this afternoon we're recording the podcast for later this week with Travis Tritt, speaking of 90s country. And, I think that Travis and I have maybe met in passing a time or two, hey, how you doing kind of thing, but I've never really had a conversation with him. And not unlike Tracy, I mean, he's one of my biggest influences in music, so I'm really, really looking forward to that one as well.
I actually got to talk to him a few weeks ago because he's got the new album coming out, obviously, and it was a lot of fun. He told me the story. You'll have to ask him about. We were talking about how new country artists are they're starting to get discovered on things like TikTok and Instagram, which is crazy. And he was saying, well, the scary thing is, and no knock on anyone that gets discovered, because hey, you worked hard one way or another to get to where you are. But he goes, they haven't done the honky tonk circuit, and so therefore, when they get on stage somewhere and the power goes out or there's a bar fight or something, he's like, they're not gonna know what to do. And the show is just going to melt down. He's like, he just kind of said, I feel like you got to go through that in music to kind of know how to handle yourself in those situations. I think you'd probably agree with that. I
just wrote that down. Thank you for the the gift there. I was kind of having the same type of conversation with somebody the other day. Not specifically that, but I do agree with what he said. But also, even like, these Zooms are great, but especially for people like us or artists like myself who've been doing it as long as I have, who have gone out and developed relationships with country radio and all the people in our genre that we, it behooves us to do so. And, all these new artists I feel bad for, because it's really hard to get to know somebody over a computer. I mean, you can continue to have a relationship, but building one is really difficult. So that's what I said, man. These new artists, they better have to go back and then obviously, just out of jealousy for a guy who went through airports, dog ass tired every single day, for leave for 4 months, and you go see, you're in 3 different cities a day playing in a conference room full of people who are just eating pizza. They came for the free pizza that day. And for those your listeners out there, I'm speaking about a radio tour. I probably didn't make that abundantly clear, but the point being, they're missing out on a lot of those things, and a lot of it has to do with technology. And then you throw this pandemic on top of it, and yeah, it is wild. I haven't really thought about the basically going through honky tonk you, if
Exactly.
you will.
Exactly.
But yeah, that's a good point he made.
Well, Justin, it's always good to catch up with you, man. I know you got other people to talk to. Straight Out of the Country. Make sure you check it out. We're going to play the single. We didn't have much. It's always good to see you, man.
Thanks, man.
Hopefully we'll see each other in person sometime real soon.
Hey, thanks, brother. I appreciate your time, man. And thanks for your patience.
Yes, sir. Bye-bye.
All right, buddy. Take care.